The atrium was darkened, save a glow over a raised platform. As the entirety of the Zondrafin pack was gathered, all of them watched the four figures standing on the platform, bathed in a low light of shimmering blue, an effort to mimic their homeworld's natural light at this hour of the day. David stood to the right of Alaris. His uniform was his old military one, clean and tidy, and still had his rank and campaign pins, his normal mane of hair brushed back and slicked, his visor on to help the crowd stay calm and hands clasped behind his back. Alaris was in the traditional robes of her people. They hung a bit loose and shifted a bit with her breathing. The sleeves came to large cuffs, its color a deep purple trimmed by gold. A red sash holding it closed as it wraps around most of her waist. Her hair was braided back tightly, and her fur seemed to gloss and reflect light, her stance a neutral one, with her hands forward and held together over her core. Next to her was Kiga. Like her mother, she was dressed in the robes of their kin, but her sash was a pale blue, and her left side was exposed, but not to an indecent degree, just enough for her arm to be reachable. To her left, Cole stood, his best uniform on and clean, and hair brushed back. His hands shook a bit behind his back, his eyes scanning the near 100 Zandrifans before him, panic setting in. "Cole," David said as low as possible. "You got this. I am sure of it." His voice was just loud enough for the four to hear. "Right, Alaris." Her ear flicked. "Yes, Cole, you are ready. Just remember your part." "Yeah, ready when you are," Cole said, his voice shaking a bit in his throat. Alaris nodded to David as her Kusifane, and therefore the highest-ranked male of the pack. He now had a role, too, so he stepped forward, head intently moving as though he was scanning the crowd. "Tras nifaergem kozandrafane, see we who gather with hallowed hunters." David spoke as loud as possible. His voice carried as much authority and reverence as it could. "Kilo kais varg mil killa hinner, Marcus mal zandari, Marcus mal kikfar, Marcus mal noe cs no." Call the heaven to take a coming of age in the lights of Zandari, in the light of the gone, in the light of the mothers of mothers. He raised his left hand, arm bending but a bit and head raised up, the crowd letting a soft howl roll at his word. "Gitvel kilahinar nas kiga noe alaris hincarno ver alris hincarno malverg, quan kusifane kikfar kianras hincarno, now witness a coming of age of Kiga mothered Alaris hincarno of Alris hincarno the bearer, sired by the beloved fallen Kianras hincarno." He turns slowly and gestures to the three of them with his raised hand, his call to order complete as he takes one more step back and out of the light. Alaris and Cole slowly turn toward Kiga as she turns to face Alaris. "Gitvel mis, Kiga noe Alaris hincarno tol mivmaide, mar mauk vaid, mar whirl quan, mar whirl noe, vantras hydran weistal kikvine. Hear me, Kiga mothered Alaris hincarno, my young, stand strong and proud as your sire would, as mothers would, until you see the afterlands and your mark is past." Alaris speaks, her voice soft but loud, her hands taking an armband from the folds of her robes, her eyes filled with joy and pride as she slowly hands it past Kiga to Cole over Kiga's right. Cole slowly brings the armband to Kiga's left arm, hand clasped tight, but not pressing yet. He looks up a bit and speaks. "Nifergem gitvel Kiga noe alaris hincarno ver alris hincarno malverg. Ki marfal mishra Cole Smith. Gaim kilahinar nas Kiga. Marcus mal zandari. Marcus mal kikfar. Marcus mal noe ses noe. Tra marvel kikvain. We who gather now witness Kiga mothered Alaris hincarno of Alris hincarno the bearer. I'll harden favored Cole Smith. See her coming of age onto Kiga in the lights of Zandari, in the light of the gone, in the light of the mothers of mothers. See this mark placed. His voice is a bit harder than needed, but the words are clear and concise. His hand finally presses on the armband, closing it around Kiga's arm just above the elbow before he releases it. Tras kikvine, valis Kiga nifnoi, valis Kiga tilsno, maros trein carno nas Kiga, ot nas Kiga varmasa. See the marked new mother Kiga unbearing, young mother Kiga unbearing. Hear now of home and clan onto Kiga, and know her as Kiga with light, Cole says, his pace steady and deliberate. Kiga turns to face the crowd, a smile visible on her face, and howls for a second before looking at Alaris. Maite Carno les Hincarno, nas Kiga Hincarno. My home and clan is Hincarno, and know me as Kiga Hincarno, before placing her hands on Alaris and Cole's shoulders. Tanadal Kiga Hincarno, Malverg Alaris Hincarno, Mishra Cole Smith, Tras Kilia Hinner, Tras Nifnoe, Tras Nifergim Kos Zandrafane, Marcus Mal Zandari, Marcus Mal Kikfar, Marcus Mal No CS No, Keet Gaadie. See her Kiga Hincarno, born by Alaris Hincarno, favoring Cole Smith. See the coming of age, see the new mother, see we who gather with hallowed hunters, in the lights of Zandari, in the light of the gone, in the light of the mothers of mothers, a new dawning. Cole calls out as he finishes. Kiga jumps as he and Alaris catch her feet. Keet Gaadie! Everyone howls as she is raised. Keet Gaadie! Everyone howls as she is raised again. Keet Gaadie! Everyone howls as she is raised a final time. Followed by a growing howl from all who witnessed, the sound grew deafening and hard, like a warning to anything near. And as it tapers out, the crowd disperses and the lights shift back to normal as the atrium is mostly emptied. David watches as a crowd of the pack congratulates Kiga and wishes her luck, as Alaris walked over to him and he turns his head a bit so she can tell he sees her. Well, that didn't go so bad, David said as she reached him. Yes, Cole did all right, Alaris says as she looks back to her daughter, slowly surrounded by young males of the pack. But I should have a word with her soon. Her demeanor shifts a bit away from happiness to concern. Anything you want to confide in me, my Zandno? David asks, still maintaining a respectful demeanor. Too many of the pack are still near. They wouldn't like the way he wants to act. Yes, I need you to talk with Cole. He doesn't understand what he is, she says, eyes still watching the unfolding events. He needs to fight for her, and I know she wants him too. Oh, that's my bad. I'll fix this, David says and steps away. Cole is stuck watching Kiga. He seems to want to talk, but she was swarmed, and he isn't sure what he should do. Hey, Cole, David calls from near him. I need to tell you something. It's a bit of a secret. He reaches an arm over Cole and pulls him a bit away. I never told you what Mishra means. David pulls him closer. It means that she likes you and wants you. All you have to do is be her boyfriend. Cole's eyes widen. But you got to move. All those guys in that swarm are trying to push you out. Thanks, boss. Could have told me sooner, Cole says as he straightens out and turns, eyes finding his target. It's better late than never, I guess. He walks towards the crowd, hands pressing shoulders away, arms forcing people to pull apart as he makes his way in. David watches for a few seconds before a yell rings out, "Back the fuck up or someone is getting kicked." As the swarm breaks apart, Cole is next to Kiga, their eyes locked, hers a wave of affection, his much the same but with fading anger. He reaches out his hand and she takes it as they walk away, leaving a stunned crowd. David watched a bit as they ran around a corner, but he felt a hand reach up his back and his face turned to where the owner was. I don't know what you told him, Alaris said as his face comes around. But thank you, my Kuzifane. Her visage was one of joy and happiness, but behind her eyes was love. Of course, my Zanno, David said as he smiled back, joyful at her happiness. David is back at it. The gym is less packed than last time, but this time he is pushing himself, a need to be strong, outpaced restraint. As he finishes his set, the weight on the lateral pull is about 140 pounds. He can feel his sweat and muscles burn a bit. What's next? He asks as he stretches. Arm curls, 75 pounds per arm. It's just about what you could do a week ago, Hirth says as he reads the team's chart. David, don't push so hard. At this rate, it feels like you are trying to get back to how you were on Hoth, 5 inches. That's the plan. You said so yourself. That was me at my peak, David said as he walked over to the weights and grabbed the right one. Besides, I'm going to have a trial by combat in about 4 days, and we are leaving FTL tomorrow. He started his first set, his posture correct and breathing steady. No one can spot me when you are all off exploring. Last chance for me to have someone watch me and make sure I am doing this right. David, I get that you have a bit on your shoulders right now, Hirth said as he inspected him, but it's better to be careful and smart than fast. His voice carried the same tone of friendship he always had. Your words, not mine. David knew that Hirth was right. He got this far by being smart. They had fought the Jackalow on 7 different worlds, those xenocidal machinists and their war droids, and their attacks were terrible. Trillions of droids orbital dropping in what was little more than a tin can. But he and his team survived, and they did it because he led them with smarts, never underestimating those machines, never taking the obvious actions, and not taking last stands unless it was necessary. And Hurth was there through all of it, a grunt from the recruits, one that had seen him and his efforts, one of the few that stayed even when David found out about his mother's fate, one of the few that did the hard thing, and pushed him to stand back up, never lifting him up, but had a hand ready to help. "Look, I'm still trying to figure out what to do," David said with a strained voice. "The pack is unstable right now. There are about 10 different females that want to lead, and the only reason they haven't done anything is that they are all studying me, trying to find a weakness to be exploited. They will wait until after the trial, which is why I am doing this," he said as he switched his arms. "Over your shoulder to the left, next to the barbells, do you see her?" Hurth slowly gazed about like he was bored before turning a bit to see. And sure enough, there was a Zondraphane female, a fear visible on her face, hand gripping tightly to the frame of a bench press. "Yeah, I see her. She looks scared." "She is Alaris' second sister. She is the most likely to challenge Alaris, and right now she is staring at the mate of her sister, a mate that has been here 2 hours, who ran for half an hour and is still going, who was lifting weights she would strain to shift, let alone lift," David said slowly, his face to the ground but eyes watching her, visor hiding his gaze. "She is trying to quantify how her sister has me, why I would be her mate, why I wouldn't use my strength to control Alaris, and it scares her." "So?" Hurth turned back to him. "I am going to show them all the power I pose, the power I am giving to Alaris to wield," David said. "That aside, after this set, I need to go to a meeting with the captain and all the leaders and liaison officers." He shifts his head, making it look as though he is watching her, and smiles. "Besides, whatever happens in this system is secondary to our task." And as she sees him move, she runs, a desire to flee taking hold. David walked into the briefing room. The captain and Duchess at the end of the table. Around it were the 10 leaders and 2 extra liaison officers. Lithrani and Kyle Meyer are the only ones with separate leaders from the officers. But from what David knows, the leaders and officers were married or something akin, so there isn't miscommunication. He walked to an open seat, one that put him next to Alaris and Misan Henri. It put him on one of the narrow sides of the table, making it easier to see everyone, a good seat. "David, thank you for arriving just on time," the captain said, a bit of annoyance in his voice. "Sorry, Captain, I was held up after my workout," David said as he slid into his chair. "It won't happen again." The captain let out a bit of a whistle before looking around and pressing a button on the terminal. "As you are all aware, we are a day out from X5001, and our comms have linked up with our drone. It has fed us data, it has, and there are some developments." A hollow map of the system manifested at the center, an F-class main sequence star, with 4 planets in its orbit, each getting a label. But David's eyes were pulled at the new information the map displayed. One of the planets, X5001c, its information said it is an inhospitable world. As you can see, most of the planets are the same as they are meant to be, except for X5001c, which was scanned as a garden world 5 cycles ago. It is now a barren wasteland, the captain said as the map moved. Most around the table shifted. Garden worlds are prizes a lot of races are looking for. It is the only reason the Lithrani, Kaelmer, Gyndos, and Vil Anis are on this mission. Each of them wants to expand, and an unclaimed garden world is a tempting prize. Now it was more like Mars 70 years ago, not that it matters. As you can read for yourselves, the planet has lost a lot. The temperature is close to 0, and the atmosphere is poisonous, but we have a task, so assignments. Call out if you want your teams to land somewhere. Remember, you can only claim systems your people have been to. The captain straightened up and waved his hand, shifting the map to the first planet. Let's start with X5001A. It was listed as a Class 3 danger world, not that dangerous to Death Worlders, but a nightmare to Cradle Worlders. It had a good temperature range, and the gravity wasn't too much lower than half of Earth's, but David also had one team to send, and he had his eyes set. I would like to send 2 teams, said Zithphos, the Vishtani liaison officer. The Vishtani technocracy from the Class 4 danger world called Shisethahun translates to home of endless rain and water. Their homeworld is a massive tropical swamp. But they are lizards. Well, 5-foot-tall lizards that can shoot their uppermost scales off. But they and humanity are close allies. They like to eat spicy food, and we like the sweets they make. We'll be sending 2 down too, said the Kinarmar liaison officer Kinarmar, from a Class 2 danger world as a home planet named Kinar, which translates to ship on stars. Looked a bit like oversized otters, but they have no fur and have massive claws. They are good shipbuilders, apparently, and pretty smart, too. I'll be sending 1 team, Alaris said after looking over the planet once more. Xandraphanes, Alaris's people, their home planet of Xandra, is orbitally locked to a gas giant, giving their home a constant state of twilight for most of the year except for 5 days. Their home is a forest of trees, with a bunch of other fauna that is carnivorous but edible, and a whole bunch of predators. Aside from David, she is the only other Death Worlder, a Class 3-1 at that. The captain looked around, waiting to see if anyone else wanted to check on the first planet, before waving his hand again. Right, X5001b. David read over the information out of habit. It is a Class 1 normal world, with a good range of temperatures and a good balance of gases in the atmosphere. It was mostly ocean, littered by land masses, the biggest about the size of Australia and the smallest about the size of old Italy. But the gravity is too low. We will be sending all of our teams, said the Gyndos liaison. Of course, they will. It's a close clone of their homeworld. Gyndos are 7-foot groundhogs, but they have webbed feet and hands for swimming. They also have the lung capacity to stay under for a day. They are good architects, though they had a hard time when they tried to leave their homeworld. We will go too, but only 2 teams, said the Klokash liaison. The Klokash, they are only one of 3 herbivores in the defense block, are massive quadrupeds. Their appearance looks like a headless, flat-faced bear, but they have a coat of quills under their fur, and their forward hands are massive paws, big enough to grab a human torso, hailing from a Class 10 danger world of Kishkas, thunderous plains. We will send 2 teams too, Alaris adds. The captain watches everyone for a bit. Those are the only 2 planets considered habitable at this point, and he needs to make sure that everyone that wants to be on them gets to go. Then he waves again. Right. Anyone volunteering to check on what happened to X5001C? The odd one out, by David's best assessment, it is now a Class 2, if not 3, barren world, basically near useless. With no flora or fauna, the atmosphere is poisonous, and the gravity is about 1/3 that of Earth, but that's the problem. It should have been a Class 1 garden world, basically a perfect habitat for any race. The human contingent will see what happened, David says. The captain watches him for a second. Anyone else willing to join? Everyone, except for Alaris, suddenly has better things to look at. Well, that is all right, David. I will keep the ship closer if you find something we would like to know. We appreciate it, Captain. Also, I would like to request a withdrawal of assistance from the ground team, David said, as his hands come to rest on the table. And I would like to have one of the task forces be allowed to accompany the ground team. Everyone looks at him a bit wide-eyed, but the captain nods. This planet is a death trap. Even Alaris's kin would have a hard time there. As for X5001D, the captain asked. None even bothered. It's an ice world, too far from its star to melt the ice, but close enough to get pulled by its gravity field. Thin atmosphere and temperature basically at 0. But if the Republic gets it, they would build into the ice and build a shipyard or something. Or mine it dry. Okay, we will reconvene in 2 days after the pulse scan is done and see if there is new information. Dismissed. As David sits on his bed, his visor in his hands, carefully turning it over. It is all black from the outside, with 2 lines going down about where the center of his eyes is. The lines don't bother his vision, but it is a good guide marker for most, giving an idea of where his eyes are. But he doesn't need them. His eyes work fine, but everyone is always scared when they see them. He puts the visors to the side and pulls his jacket off. A bit of sweat from the day still hangs to his body. His muscles ache. He can feel them. They will be sore in the morning. His desire to sleep is clear in his mind, but under it is a want. He wants to see Alaris. He rolled back on the bed, his mind summoning images of her, soothing to his heart's ache. He sucks in a hard inhale, and sleep starts to take to him. But then a call at the door. Someone has come to talk or see him. He puts the visors back on and opens the door to find Alaris. She is dressed in some tight legging that cut at the knee and a tank top that crops just below her chest, a human hoodie draped over her, zipped up a bit over her core, her fur still showing signs of her taking a shower recently. Alaris looks up at him as the door slides away into the wall. Her eyes seem to be looking into his. "David, I am sorry, I know it's late." She stops. Her voice falters as her thoughts shift. "But I was hoping I could see you." Her hand reaches up to his face and touches cheek. Without the visor. Her face that of readiness and fear. Her uncertainty is evident. "For you, I would do anything." David takes her with a hand at her back, pulling her past the door and to the center of his room, and holds her. Both hands on the swell of her back, a bit above the tail, not tight or hard, but enough to keep her there and to catch her if it is too much. She looks at him, hesitation clear as her hands slowly reach up. David closes his eyes as she takes off the cover. "Open them, please." Her voice rings into his core. It is overflowing with fear and desire. So he slowly does. His gaze focused down but slowly shifts up. Her eyes are a whirlwind. Fear is clear in the foreground, but behind is a force to keep looking, followed by traces of love and care. Her ears pin back, and the corner of her mouth pulls for a snarl, but she holds. She doesn't look away, her mind battling her instincts, one side of her screaming to run and hide, while the other telling her who he is and how he cares about her. But seeing her like this hurts him, cuts at the deeper parts of him, her agonized face, a torment his eyes cause, so he shuts them tight. He wants to see her love and affection, not her suffering. "I am sorry, Alaris." His hands shake and his voice breaks. "I hate seeing you like that." He pulls her closer. "Please, put them back on." He feels her listen to him, and as the visors fit over his eyes, he looks at her again. This time her visage is pained but not fearful. She is hurt by her inability to look at his eyes. He pulls her closer and kisses her, an intimate kiss, one that carries his love and cares for her, one that tells her his wish for her. And as they pull away, he can see her, her eye reassured, her gaze a loving one, the visage of his Zanno. "I can wait, and we can keep trying," he says with honest love. "When you are ready to try again, just come back." She breaks away with a nod and leaves, yet behind the visor, hidden from the world, his eyes let loose tears. His mind now reels at fate, the damnable fate his homeworld's gift thrust upon him. He can stare at stars, yet the star he wishes for hates his sight.